Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Before I get into this video, I'd like to ask you all to please leave a like or comment on my video and consider subscribing to my channel. Now, this video is once again sponsored by the Borg. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. And yes, the Borg are currently recruiting once again. That's within the Genesis Federation. So if you are definitely looking for them, you can have a look on the official Discord. They do post in that channel quite a bit to say that they are recruiting because they are trying to build the alliance up a little bit bigger. The Borg is one corporation within the Genesis Federation. The Genesis Federation is multiple alliances of multiple corporations with quite a large community, and they are welcoming people in. You can join in through the Borg at the moment. You can try and get accustomed with the Borg. If the Borg aren't your taste, there are several other corps who might be your taste in terms of where you want to play. There are multi-time zone, multi-ethnicity, and multicultural backgrounds within the corp. So there is always a place for you to integrate into if you don't enjoy a particular setting. So let's get into this discussion for today. Today's discussion is going to be doctrine ships. Now, doctrine ships are what is produced by a corporation to make activities very cheap. You get people who build cheap destroyers for operations. You get players who build cheap cruisers for missions, and those are the general doctrines for most corps. There are one or two corps who have already started to move up in terms of doctrine. They're building battle cruisers and faction cruisers for doctrine. Now, yes, that is a very, very expensive doctrine to go faction cruiser, and I am going to explain the pros and cons of the two. So let's go with the first one, the destroyer doctrine. So the destroyer doctrine is definitely going to be your cheaper destroyers, and it could even be a frigate that they're making as well. So you're going to go with something cheap like the Common 2, anything that's under 10 million value. So the common navy issue is just over the value that you would spend on a doctrine vessel. So as you can see, not many of these ships are really that cheap, but nonetheless you can build them. And once you have enough of these vessels built, you have the solid baseline for you to go forward. And when I say a solid baseline, I mean you can have 100 players run with these ships because you have 1,000 of them, and you can fight in a battle and lose those ships 10 times over without really having to have occurred a major cost to all of your players. The cost is minimal because you're definitely making it out of your own materials. You're making it out of what's available within your sector. It's your own PI. You're not really buying anything off the markets. So it's really, really cheap builds. But yeah, all the negatives to that same situation. If you are building up doctrines, if your doctrine doesn't keep up with the power of the game, if anything end game drops in the game, the battle cruisers and battleships can really put a hurting on destroyers. And this isn't any joking matter, because if you look at it, if any one of those ships get webbed, because they generally have these very close orbiting ranges, if they get webbed, target painted, or if they get hit with any type of disruption to their speed, they're going to take damage in large figures. And if you have fleets running things like missile launchers or drones, there's no way to escape it. The damage comes no matter what you do. And if they catch you in anything which is going to disrupt you, the damage is way faster. Running something like a shield guardian to hold you in place isn't really the best idea, because as far as I know, there is no battle cruiser shield guardian. Wait, let's just have a look at this. Yeah, I don't see the stuff saying shield field module. Yeah. Oh wait, can fit shield field module. Okay, so I'm wrong. So you can run the small shield field module on the small ship, and that's going to give you a small bubble. It's going to extend your health a little bit, but the amount of damage that can be placed on you from big ships is not so small that it can be called minimal. You'd have to run heavy logistic support for keeping those ships alive. Even in the bigger fleets, cruisers take quite a bit of damage, and you need the logistics to repair those ships. and your resistance is quite higher, and everything is quite easily banded together. Now, if you can move fast and someone manages to web your lead, your uh, defense ship, your guardian, and pull it down and put the hurt on it very quickly. Let's say, for example, 10 or 20 battle cruisers hit destroy a guardian. It's almost instant death, regardless of how much of resistance you have. It's almost instant death. They can actually destroy the guardian with logistics still on it, with everybody in the bubble. So it's going to be heavy damage output. It's going to go away almost instantly. That is how come a lot of corps go one up and they use cruiser formations. Now, cruiser formations are where things get a little bit complicated. Within the cruiser formations, there are 2 logistics per type of guardian. So you can use either the Osprey or the Scythe for Shield Guardian. You can use the Agera or the Rapture for the what is the name of this? Sorry, it's not the Agera or the Rapture. The Agera or the Executor for the armor, the armor doctrine. So if you're running armor doctrines, you can use them as your logistics. And then your guardians change. You have the Moa Guardian, you have the Mauler Guardian. They have 2 different types of fields. The one is shield field, the one is armor link. So you link your armor together and you link it into one ship, higher resistance. That's the way that it goes. It's good against a certain format of ship. It's good against a certain format of battle. The place where armor doctrines fail is in Capsuleer fights, because Capsuleer outposts use missiles. So you're taking optimal damage from the missiles, and those missiles deal a severe amount of damage. If they hit your ships, which they generally will, you're not going to be able to get away with small figures of damage. They're going to go right into you with maximum output. So that is one of the warnings when you're using this particular format. You are strong against lasers and railguns. You are weak against cannons and missiles. Decomposers, if I'm correct, will still eat right through you. So there isn't really a way around that. So there you go on the basics for this type of format. Now let's get into it a little bit more in detail. Let's add 1 or 2 pieces of flavor text to this entire situation. If you up your model 1 more over to battle cruiser, okay, when it comes to destroyer and cruiser doctrines, the fee to make them is minimal. They barely cost corps anything. That's how come corps do it. They try to make as much profit as possible so that they can have as big a fleet as possible. Now, when it comes to the next aspect of this whole fighting, when it comes to deploying stronger formations and stronger ships and facing superior fleets, cruisers just don't cut it. Yes, they can destroy a faction cruiser, but the faction cruiser does have a possibility of taking out 3 or 4 before it goes. So you're risking 4 ships at the hope of defeating 1 ship. But if a fleet of faction cruisers has to jump out of a gate, you're in trouble. 1 fleet can equal to easily 40 to 50 players in another fleet. And even if you have 40 to 50, if they have more than 1 guardian in that fleet, they can easily equal 100 to 200 ships. And that's because they have that type of capability. Their ships are heavy DPS. Their ships are extremely powerful. Their ships are extremely tanky. So that's the thing about faction. That's why you always want faction cruisers. Now, the fact that you can do this here means if you do run a faction cruiser doctrine, the faction cruiser doctrine is only for an elite squad. So an elite squad is 20 members. So in a corp like Genesis, for example, if you had to say you wanted to run an elite squad would be about 100 members strong. So yeah, I can see the reason why that wouldn't be used for a corporation. So faction cruiser doctrine isn't a good idea for large corporations. But let's say you're in a smaller corporation where there's only like 200 players. That's an easy 10 to 20 member elite squad. So a 10 or 20 member elite squad, filling them up with ships, because remember, when you say a squad is elite, if there's 4,000 members and you only claim 10 members are elite, there's a ton of other PvP players who will feel offended by what you're saying and will decide, you know what, I'm a lot better than this here. I can get the faction cruiser from another corp. Let me just head out. That's how come they don't do it, because they don't want that negativity to flow with it. So a faction cruiser doctrine is something that small corps can run. That's because making 20 to 30 billion ISK isn't that difficult for small corps. Small corps can run quick operations in high sec. They can run quick operations in nullsec where they rest as a corp, because when you only have 100 or 200 members, getting them all together sitting in one sector farming anomalies isn't that difficult. And if you can take out 10 anomalies in an hour, that means you're going to have a respawn rate of 10 an hour. Not 10 an hour, 10 every 15 minutes almost. So yeah, it's going to refresh really fast. The ISK is going to count up for the bounties really quickly, and it's going to make a very good way of farming. Something like a Dead Space 10 spawns, you've got 200 members. Guardians jump in, you have these bubbles up right at the start. Everybody starts fighting in their small little pockets. There isn't enough concentrated fire on one ship to destroy it. Everything goes down quickly. You finish a Dead Space in a matter of minutes. The profit from the Dead Space is something like 4 or 5 billion. It goes through the corp. The corp pays for it. The corp goes and puts it on the market. There you go, quick and easy. 4 billion made of a small activity. You're running it as a corp instead of as individuals. Now, when you up this level to battle cruisers are cheaper than faction cruisers, and they cost about the same to outfit correctly. The only problem is the Guardian level of battle cruisers isn't yet out. The Guardian level of battle cruisers comes out in the next level, T9. Yeah, there we go. As you can see, everything starts at T9 for Guardian cruiser, battle cruisers. So with this being said, it means that you're not going to have the Guardian as part of your formation. The Guardian is going to give you an extended shield, an extended lot of armor. It's going to be very tanky. It can handle quite a lot of firepower. It is a good match for a faction cruiser fleet. So faction cruiser versus battle cruiser fleet, it's a one-on-one. Now a corp who is big, 4,000, 5,000 members such as Genesis can run this type of doctrine very easily. And the reason for it is to actually build a a battle cruiser isn't that expensive. It costs in the range of 150 to 180 million ISK. And for big corporations who have hundreds of members, building 10 or 20 of these, giving them to your mid-range or your elites isn't really going to be that difficult. You have 200 to 300 of them. It's 4 or 5 billion worth of building of these ships. It's really heavy. It hits really hard. You're moving in a fleet that can take on heavier opponents. There you go. You've just broken a barrier. You have the ability to go in, take out a massive force by just deploying the right ships. Yes, it might mean that you have to take a Moa Guardian or a Mauler Guardian in with you guys. So you're using one tier lower on the Guardian with a very, very powerful attack force. It is your beaching, your breacher, your beachhead formation. So you're running those battle cruisers for the beachhead. They are your elites. You use them to take out fleets. You use them to take on heavy combat. And you use your cruiser doctrine or your lower level doctrine to just do heavy DPS to a capture their outpost. And with the introduction of heavier defenses from corporations like ring formations, diamond formations, floral pattern formation, defenses with stations, running shield formation, shield guardians, shield operation is much more effective against them than it is using armor guardian formation, because the armor formation is going to take more damage from the missiles while the shield formation takes less damage. It's more acquainted to the missiles, and the missiles only do one set of damage to them. It isn't so equally distributed. Their strong point is really taking out armor. So that there gives you a whole lot of an advantage. You now can sit in there with your shield field. Your shield field is going to generate enough power. It's going to keep you safe. The reason why a lot of people go to armor guardians is armor guardians are very good to take on laser format. So players who play a lot of lasers, you can really take it on with your armor. But that is only because you have that extended defense on the one slot. There's a lot of defense in it. Yes, it does tank quite a bit of damage, but when it comes to something like taking on a missile, you're taking it on in your armor. If anything goes wrong, if you ever fall low, there is no get out point. You are really taking it into your hull of your ship. If they manage to hold you there for long enough, if you take enough damage, it's bye-bye ship. That's how come people don't like playing that format. It's too dangerous for fleet formation. Losing ships or the loss of a ship for that type of a formation is very risky. That's why you'd rather start off with the shield guardian. If your shield guardian isn't being effective enough, then you throw in your armor guardian at the later point in the fight. And this is basically to ensure that you're moving correctly with the fight, so that you don't have that one step to defeat. If you lose your armor guardian after you've had a shield guardian, you've given yourself enough time to fight. If you couldn't win that fight, you definitely couldn't win it. But if you went straight for armor guardian, you literally took out 1/3 of your defensive capability to take on enemy. And if they manage to break your shield guardian formation, if they manage to take out your shield guardians, they really did manage to pull off a very good win. And if they don't take out your shield guardian and they take out an armor guardian, it doesn't really reflect on the battle. It means that you could have had a double formation with the armor and the shield guardian, but instead you chose to go pure armor guardian and you lose at that point. So running those doctrines is one of the more risky effects. You only run it on fleet versus fleet. So in other words, if you know you're running against phantasms, you can run an armor guardian fleet. They're going to have a very tough time against you. They're going to struggle to take you down. You're going to possibly break through them. That is the whole advantage of it. But if you're running a full armor guardian against station assault, you're taking maximum damage. You're not at your optimal position. You're not optimally defending yourself. You've lost the advantage of the armor guardian. The shield guardian is just as effective. There you go. You've just counteracted your own activity. So that is the whole discussion on doctrines. Now, there is one other type of doctrine, and that is a battleship doctrine. The battleship doctrine is a heavy assault fleet. They won't be matched by battle cruisers, really. You'd have to run the T8 heavy assaults, and you'd have to run a T8 defense formation. Now, we don't have defense from battle cruisers, as you can see, at T8, so there is no way to run them as yet. You have to wait for us to reach T9, then we can mix together T9 logistics with T9 heavy assault with T9 guardian, with the T9 guardian, and all of this together is going to give you a massive effect on taking on combat. You're going to have high range, high firepower, and that is what you want. You want strong attacks, you want strong defense, you want everything at the maximum, and that's what you need to take on a battleship formation. So to take on a battleship formation, you're going to run battle cruisers in the T9 format. So yes, that's where it's going to go. It's going to be very expensive, but you need to have these fleets ready. You need to have that super elite fleet always ready to go. It may be a personally done fleet, because you do get the crazy players who will go straight after these ships and they'll want to take them out for PvP. So yes, allow them to do it. Allow them to run their own fleet. Allow them to run ahead of you. They can breach a lot more powerful formations. Let me just put it in easy terms. A battle cruiser, a battleship formation that breaches a gate can actually take out 200 to 300 frigates easy. They can take out 200 to 300 destroyers easy. They can maybe take out 100 cruisers easy. And that is the whole idea of a 10-man battleship fleet. They heavy hitters. They heavy defense. They tanky. They can sit on the front line. So that's where you deploy them. And if you want to give them some support, you can always send through a ton of battle cruisers to help them. So yes, if you have them as your front breacher beachhead, you're going to deploy them, then you're going to send in battle cruisers behind them, and then you're going to send in your cheap doctrine behind that. But you have to keep getting towards the front of the pack. You need to have those running in your fleet. Otherwise, you're going to run very long fleets. It's going to become tiresome. It's going to become boring. And you're going to get players drifting away from your operations. Another thing within operations is your fleet commanders. If your fleet commanders aren't polite, if your fleet commanders aren't understanding, you're going to chase away players from your fleets. Players won't want to play with you. If you don't know how to mind your manners, it is better for you not to do it. If you are incapable of restraining your mouth as a fleet commander, don't be a fleet commander. If you are rude, if you are insensitive, if you are pushy, if you are going to be vulgar, don't be the fleet commander. You're literally destroying your own corporation in that operation. You've done more damage to those in your fleet than you have to your enemy. There might be a guy who got disconnected, and you swearing at him because his ship got destroyed. He was in the fleet, he was there, he was participating. You swearing at him because he's out of the fleet, you insulting him, you're saying you're not going to replace his ship, so forth. You're basically disparaging him. You haven't asked for any explanation. You don't care about the explanation. You've literally just alienated that one person. He's not coming back to that fleet. And it may be true that I've done that there to one or two commanders. If I see them in a fleet, I generally avoid joining operations because they are really rude, and a similar thing did happen to me. And that is it. You run an operation for 4 to 5 hours. People have real lives. Real life is really not going to take second base to the game. And if it does, it's just going to happen. It's going to be one of those things. We have to eat. We have to go to the bathroom. We have to do a lot of things in our real life. We have to work. We have to do cooking. We have to do all of these things. And you can't expect to run a 6-hour operation with nobody needing to take part in real life. So that is one of the things. Please mind your manners in operations. That goes out to all fleet commanders. This isn't to one corp in particular. I know this here applies to more than one corp. I know it applies to more than one federation. And being bossy about your commands, you can repeat the command 3 times. There's no problem about it. But there's no reason to add in insults. There's no reason to start chewing on a person because they aren't as fast as you. Remember, everybody has different levels of experience. Everybody has different levels of training. You can't expect someone to go and sacrifice their battleship formation for your doctrine and to have perfect skills in the battle cruiser. You're expecting them to spend 500 plaques every time just to take part in a fleet operation, so that they have to sacrifice playing with their best ship, which they would have most probably brought if they wanted to actually play effectively. You understand, you're disparaging people. You're giving them a reason not to take part. Think about your manners. Think about apologies. Think about formally apologizing. Apologize if you're a fleet commander who didn't know you were doing things wrong. Apologize, try to do things correctly. If you find that you are incapable, give it up to the next person. There's a lot of players like that. There's a lot of players who'd rather point finger and make accusations instead of stand up and do things the right way. And it does affect a lot of teams. It's not associated with just one corp, as I was saying. It's associated with ratting corps. It's associated with PvP corps. It's associated with a lot of different formations. Even in mining, you get people who get too pushy in those fleets. And it does happen. And you have to tell them to calm down. It's a mining fleet. We are AFK. And people begin to understand that these things happen. And you have to understand that players can be online for 4 hours. Players can be online for 6 hours. And your operation can happen at the end of the 6 hours. So they may give you an hour. They may give you 30 minutes. It doesn't mean they avoiding your fleets. You need to be able to be understanding. You need to be able to allow them to go back. If you're in the middle of a fleet with someone who has to go to work, are you going to tell the person, no, skip work for the day and come play the game with us? They could lose their job over playing the game with you, and that's because you don't want to replace their ship. Is that fair? People have real lives. You need to take that into consideration. You need to be polite. You need to be understanding. So yeah, that's just my basis on doctrines and how they should be operated. And I hope that people do understand them. I hope that people do start flying them. And thank you all for watching.